Welcome everyone to my channel. For today's project, we are going to make a really quick and easy in the hoop project, and we're also going to be trying out some new bobbin thread. So the project that we're going to be working on today is from Ohana Applique Designs, and it is a koala bear tea time mug rug. Now this mug rug happens to be a little bit unique because it's a little larger than most mug rugs. Typically mug rugs are 5x7s. This one is a 6x10. So I'm really excited to do this size and see how it comes out. For our bobbin that we're trying today, we are trying Simthread's 90 weight embroidery bobbin thread. So I have not used pre-wound bobbins in my Brother Luminaire, so this is going to be a new experience for me. Normally I just wind my own, so I'm excited to give this product a try while we're making this mug rug. So let me tell you a little bit about the mug rug project. So on my Luminaire, I do not have a 6x10 hoop, so I have to use my giant 10 5/8 by 10 5/8. What I have here is I have 2 layers of tear. Why I'm using 2 layers of stabilizer is because this particular design is just over 20,000 stitches, so you need a good base to stabilize that many stitches. So let's go over the fabrics that I'm going to be using for today. So instead of batting, I'm going to be using just a piece of felt, bit of kind of plushness. You can use a variety of products. You can use batting, you can use fleece, you can use felt. So it kind of is, you know, to your desire on what you want to use. I have felt, so that's what I've chosen for this particular project. Also, what I've chosen is, when I think tea time, I think of my mom, my grandma getting out the Italian teacups. So I chose actually a vintage fabric that I picked up at a thrift store, and I think it's going to turn out really good. So if you can see, it has all these little floral accents. It's like a teal and pink color on an ivory background, and I absolutely think it's going to be great for our tea time fabric. Now, I went ahead and I've pre-pressed all of my pieces of fabric because that's really important, okay? You don't want a wrinkled up mess on your project. This particular vintage piece is super thin, so I'm pretty sure it's 100% cotton, but it's just really thin. So what I used on the back side, if you can see, you can probably barely see it, is a Fusible iron-on stabilizer. So this is like a mesh type stabilizer, and this is just to give that fabric enough strength to absorb those 20,000 stitches we're going to be putting on it. Without that, it just might not embroider very well. So I have that on the back here. So we've got our piece of felt, our main piece of fabric, and then I have a piece of gray flannel for the koala bear, this little teal stripe piece for the actual teacup, and then this particular design does not call for applique on the letters, but I don't want the letters to get lost in the quilting that's done on the mug rug. So I pulled out these 2 pieces of scrap, and I'm going to show you how you can take fonts that don't have any fill in the middle and turn them into an applique piece with just a couple extra trimming steps. So that'll be exciting to do that. So and then I have the same vintage piece with the iron-on stabilizer for the back side. So let's go ahead and get started with this exciting project. Alright, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to get our brand new bobbin in there. I already have my design loaded up into my machine. And we are going to thread our first thread, which I'm just going to use white for that. The very first step on this particular project is the placement stitch for your material. Load the hoop. All right, here we go with our placement stitch. All right, I am ready to put my felt down. And my top layer. Okay, our next step is going to be doing the quilting. Okay, our next step is going to be a placement line for our little cup that's on here. So your next step is you're going to take your applique scissors. I like to use these curved 6-inch scissors. You can find these right on Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. And you're going to cut away all this excess fabric. You want to cut close enough to the stitches without actually cutting into the stitches. Okay, our next step is going to be our placement stitch for our koala bear. Place your fabric down. Here's the tack down stitch. Okay, now that that step is complete, you want to take your applique scissors and trim all of that fabric away. All right, our next step is to complete the satin stitching around the mug. Next step is to complete the satin stitching around the koala bear. Okay, the next several steps are going to be stitching out all of the face details on the koala bear. So I'm going to go ahead and do a time lapse for these. If you are interested in making a boy koala bear and you don't want to do the eyelashes, you can skip that step. I'm going to do the eyelashes in mine. So enjoy this time lapse while we do all of the face details. so the next part of our design is going to be working on the letters that say koala. Now remember earlier when I said I was going to use a small applique piece of fabric behind it to just give it a little bit extra, you know, dimension so it doesn't get lost in these flowers and such. So here is how you do it. I am going to do this first part in black. So this is going to be where you would actually stitch the letters if you did not want to do the applique part. So I'm going to do it in black so that you can see where it is on the actual rug. Okay, so you can see the word koala here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fabric back down and I'm going to reverse my machine back to that step. Now I don't want to use the black thread on here. I am going to actually use this bright pink as a contrasting color. Alright, perfect. So you can see how that's coming along. Now I'm going to take my applique scissors and I'm just going to very carefully cut all of these letters. Now I am leaving a raw edge, so I'm going to leave it a little bit longer than you would cut for an applique process. So I will be right back to show you the finished cut. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've cut that fabric away. I've left about 2 millimeters around the stitching, and then I just used my fingernail to kind of rough it up a little bit. It's a different technique. Some people use it a little bit longer as a rag technique, like if you're making a rag quilt. So I just think it makes it pop a little bit more on this rug. So our next step is going to be to continue with the letters. The next set of letters, which is EA for tea, is just satin letters. They're completely filled. So I'm going to use a bright yellow for that. Okay, so I'm going to do the last set of letters, which says time, exactly like the koala here. Now I know that it's going to fit in the space and that my scrap fabric is big enough here, so I'm going to go ahead and place my fabric down instead of stitching it out first and then laying down the fabric. So we're just going to skip ahead here. All right, now that that step is completed, you can see our word time there. I'm going to go ahead and trim that 2 millimeter length all around here. Okay, so I have all that trimmed. It's coming out super cute. Let's go ahead and finish this design. So the next part here is going to be to put the back piece on. So before I slip the hoop in, I want to put this back piece down. So you want pretty sides together for this step. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to secure it. This is a mug rug that you turn. It's a turnstile. So you want to make sure pretty sides are together. All right, let's go ahead and sew this up. Okay, so the very last step on this design is actually a little tiny star step. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. That is actually just so that your needle hub does not automatically go back to the center and rip stuff out. So you do not stitch the star step. That is like that on all of Ohana Applique's designs. So if they have that little star in there, it's just so your presser foot does not get caught on anything. So we're actually done with this design. We're going to remove it from the hoop. We're going to go ahead and turn it, and then we're going to seal up this side and press it. Okay, so I am not going to pick out all the tearaway stabilizer that is around this quilting because it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to take my big scissors and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. But here is where our opening is. So we want to make sure that we leave a tail there so that we can close that area. So I like to cut that part first and then go ahead and leave about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance around here as you're trimming this. All right, perfect. So now we are ready to start turning. Because this is a delicate fabric, you want to make sure that you're really super careful when you start turning this. This hole is also not very big, so just take your time while you're turning it and make sure that you don't rip any of these seams out. I usually like to get a corner started, and then let me grab my dowel stick. That's going to help push these corners out a little bit. This is my little dowel stuffing stick. If you're working with something smaller, you can even use hemostats too. That works really well. So I have a lot of tough layers here to turn, so it just takes a little extra patience. I've got that stiff felt in there. I've got the iron-on mesh. Then I've got the fabrics. And I have big, huge fingers, so this is a little tricky for me. Plus, we forgot about those. This is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting these all turned. But the finished product is absolutely wonderful. Totally worth it. My koala bear is stuck in there. I'm gonna grab my hemostats. Sometimes you can get up in there with your hemostats, grab onto a part, and gently pull them out that way as well. Brings that corner down. You guys are probably laughing at me struggling here. We're almost there. Made it. Yay. Okay, so I'm gonna stick my dowel rod in there so I can get to these corners and push them up. Be very gentle when you do this, that you don't push too hard, because you will blow right through your stitches. That would suck after you've spent the last 35 minutes stitching this out. Okay. All right, so we have that part done. Now, before I seal this edge up, I'm going to take this over to the iron and I'm going to press it. Okay, all pressed and ready to go. Now the last step is going to be to seal up this area here. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. One, you can hand sew a ladder stitch. Two, you can take it over to a sewing machine and sew it closed there. Or three, you can cheat and use super glue. So I do this a lot. This is a gel super glue and it works awesome. So I'm just going to show you this technique because I haven't showed this in a video yet. Just want to make sure everything is tucked in. Make sure I've got it in view of the camera here. And you're just going to put a little bit along that seam. I'm going to only go halfway. Ah. Okay, and I'm pressing it closed. And then I'm going to use my clips to secure this. This dries and like... Okay, let me continue on here. All right, we're going to let that dry for a second. And the only other thing that we have to do is cut these little jump stitches. So let that dry and then we'll finish up. Okay, here is our finished Koala Tea Time mug rug. Now again, this is the 6x10 size. It does come in a smaller size as well, and you can find it at Ohana Applique Designs. I'm going to put a link down in the description, and it is absolutely fabulous. It came out perfect. So that bobbin thread that we used from Simthread worked perfectly. I didn't have one single issue, so I highly recommend that. I will put a link down in the description for that as well. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure that you smash that like button, you subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions about this project, you list them below. I make sure that I get back to absolutely everybody. So until next time, happy crafting.